And here to talk more about this is Mei Ngai. Mei is professor of history and Asian American studies at Columbia University and author of Impossible Subjects, Illegal Aliens, and the Making of Modern America. Ms. Ngai, thank you so much for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, as many people may recognize, in today's paper, you recently wrote a piece in the Times, Second-Class Non-Citizens, in which you say that citizenship shouldn't be held hostage to narrow, defeatist, and racially discriminatory partisan interests.
Right.
I don't have to guess you're not too crazy about the recent GOP plan. What do you find most problematic about it? And you talk about history in this same article, and I know in your book as well. Maybe you can use that as context.
Well, this problem we have today of 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States is a big problem, but it's not the first time we've faced it. Ever since the 1920s, the United States has had the problem of people who come here unlawfully. And over the decades of the 20th century, we have periodically legalized the undocumented, and we've always paired that with giving them green cards, that is, a path to citizenship. So I think that's a good precedent, and it's something that we should continue to follow today. It promotes full inclusion, it promotes a society of political equals, and it guarantees that people who come here to live and work will have a voice in their communities.
And you go through different chapters in history. I think many may be surprised that in the 30s and 40s, you had Europeans and Canadians that were coming over the border illegally into the States, and we made them citizens down the road. And even when there were more punitive measures, like in the 50s, the postscript was we made them legal as well. And people may forget, even Ronald Reagan in the 80s made nearly 3 million people that were illegal aliens, gave them a path to citizenship as well. So we're not talking about something without precedent here, right?
Exactly. And I think the reason why we've done this over the years is because Congress recognizes that even though people come here unlawfully, it actually is not possible to completely seal the border. You know, we've been trying that for the last generation. We've put $20 billion on the border, and it has reduced unlawful entries, but you cannot stop it completely. So if people do end up coming here, and they come here to work, they come here to raise families, they become part of our communities, at some point you have to make an adjustment, and you have to say, these people are part of our society, and they should not have to live in the shadows forever.
Take the ethics out of it. Take even the historical arguments. To somebody at home who's on the fence who says, hey, you know what? If we let them become citizens here, we're rewarding amnesty, and more than that, it's going to hurt the country. Make the argument why this would be good for America, not bad, to have them completely in the fold and not in the margins.
Well, when people are undocumented and they live in the margins, they're often, I mean, it's documented, they are paid less than people who are here legally, and even people who are here legally are paid less than citizens. So you have the opportunities for more robust economic development. You have a guard against exploitation of people who don't have papers. So it's good for the economy.
But it's also good if there's a complete buy-in, right? The premise is the best person you're going to have is a person who's fully committed to the country. And if there's a disincentive for them to have a complete buy-in to what is American, to be an American in every sense of the word, then you're not going to have a complete American citizen regardless, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Now, you talked before, people aren't using the language, let's be clear, but you don't have to read too much between the lines here to see some of the objection is that you have a Latino population that's trying to become American citizens. They're trying to go through this. We've seen this before, and as you talked about in your book and also in today's editorial, we saw this with the Chinese. It was more overt, granted, back then, but we have singled out different populations over the years, and it's always been followed with an apology, maybe a generation or two later, but it's always something we look back with regret on.
Absolutely. I mean, the Chinese have the dubious distinction of being the only group to be singled out by name as undesirable as immigrants to the United States. And during the Chinese exclusion period, the people that were excluded were mostly laborers. If you were a merchant or a professional, you could come in, but you couldn't become a citizen. So we had a situation very much like what is being proposed today, where there's a legal status but a bar against being a full member of society. And this really served to marginalize people. And in the Western states, there are many jobs that you couldn't have if you weren't a citizen, and you also couldn't own farmland if you weren't a citizen. So this was a deeply discriminatory system. It was openly racist, and actually in 2012, Congress issued a statement of regret. It's not a formal apology, but it was a statement of regret, which is as far as they could go, saying that that was wrong, and I don't think we should repeat the same error again.
And finally, May, the math of this, I've seen a lot of studies, and I know you've obviously studied this extensively, that says, hey, if you get them to pay in, if you get them to pay the back taxes, if you have them fully functioning and they have to go through the other hurdles of the language and be, fully basically embedded in the society, we make more money than lose money as a country. It's a win-win, right? It
should be, right? It's a win-win. I think the problem here is that, even with the undocumented, the political opposition is mostly concerned about Latinos, and people can draw whatever conclusions they want from that. But people aren't jumping up and down about the undocumented immigrants from Poland or Russia or Ireland. It's all about the Latinos. And I think that there's a kind of irrational and frankly a racist fear about too many brown people in this country, and they don't want to see those people have the vote. But America has always changed in its composition. It doesn't stay the same, and people who come here as immigrants to work and raise families should be accepted as part of our society. People shouldn't be afraid of their votes. They should try to convince them to support them. Well, we can be sure that it will be a debate here that will take place not just in Washington, but on the campaign trail in this midterm election season. Professor, I appreciate it. And again, the book is Impossible Subjects, Illegal Aliens and the Making of Modern America. Mei Ngai, thank you very much. Thank you, Rich.